Chiasmus is a literary structure widely used in ancient Hebrew and Egyptian texts, in which the grammatical concepts of the first half of the sentence or structure are reversed in the second half, creating an A-B-B-A pattern. Its use is possibly to create symmetry, emphasize a contrast, or make text easier to memorize. The name derives from the Greek letter chi, which is X-shaped, visually representing how the words and ideas cross over each other in the sentence or structure. Greetings, folks. This is Book of Mormon Chiasmus. Today we're going to be talking about the chiasmus that forms a structure for the entire book of Ether. So what you see on the screen here is the chiasmus structure. It is formed by the genealogy that is presented in chapter 1 of the Book of Ether. And Moroni says he's taking this account directly from the 24 plates that were found by the people of Limhi. So the record of Ether is written down in a succinct pattern on these 24 plates, and then Moroni is directly lifting that record from those plates. And then the rest of the Book of Ether, in reverse order, repeats the entire story of these individuals. So if you count up the total number of names, there's actually 30 different names that are part of the genealogy from Ether down to Jared. And I think this is a true testament to the validity of the prophet Joseph Smith, because it gets much harder to conceive how a story could be verbally dictated out to a scribe, that you could keep 30 different names in your head as you created this record. So we know that Joseph Smith translated the record. He didn't make this, but picture reciting 30 names and then having to create a story of the 30 names in precise reverse order, working their way out. It's just kind of preposterous. So this is a great evidence that Joseph Smith truly was a prophet. And I just thought I'd mention that no one had any idea that this was a chiasmus structure or reverse structure until 2010. Personally, I had read this section lots of times, and it was just a boring genealogy similar to what is found, say, in the genealogy of Christ or in the Old Testament. No one really pays much of attention to it. But it was Grant Hardy who originally found this out and then published it in a work called Understanding the Book of Mormon. Again, 2010 is the first time anyone had noticed that this section had a genealogy and then in precise reverse order a genealogy again. So it's a modern discovery of something that we found in the Book of Mormon as we started looking a little more closely for these ancient Hebrew structures within the Book of Mormon. So kind of talking about the chiasmus structure, if you notice, I have the chapter and verses for every name in the beginning. So chapter 1, verse 6 to 32 is where those names are all brought forth. And then in chapter 6 is where the story begins again. And then each chapter and each verse of where the name of the king that was part of the main lineage was mentioned. And there's many other people that are mentioned in the process of this dictation as well. But you just notice that in precise reverse order, every one of these names gets mentioned as part of the story. So why I think this is a great form of chiasmus is right in the middle in chapter 2 and chapter 3, it's a testimony of Christ. This is where God interacted with the people. He gave them commands out of a cloud that told them which direction to go, gave instructions to the brother of Jared. And then in chapter 3, it's the moment where the brother of Jared finally has enough faith that he sees the finger of God. And then once he sees that, starts asking questions about God. He's afraid at first, and then eventually the premortal Jesus Christ reveals himself to the brother of Jared, and it's a fascinating and wonderful testament, I guess, to kind of the premortal existence and to the form of our spirits. It's just truly amazing. And so Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 form the central idea from this entire chiasmus of the whole story. It's, hey, there's a visitation of Jesus Christ is the most important thing. And so as an overall chiasma structure, it's really beautiful. You have 30 different names, the interaction of Jesus Christ, and then 30 different names repeated in reverse order till the destruction. So I thought I'd mention there's a few other things that exist in this chapter that make it even more preposterous that Joseph Smith could create this story and keep it in his mind. So the interaction of Christ ends in chapter 3, and then chapter 4 and 5 are an interruption from Moroni. Chapter 4 talks a little. Moroni is talking a little bit about the book of Ether. He's talking about sealing up the interpreters. He gives a little bit of explanation on faith. Says God commands you to be baptized and to repent. And then you get a second chapter that talks about the three witnesses, which I think I'll mention that section in chapter 5 is really interesting because it's actually a prophecy. Um, Moroni prophesies that there'll be three witnesses, and why I think this is such a great prophecy is it was translated before Joseph Smith had met David Whitmer. So we know that soon after this they finish through the title page of the Book of Mormon. They finish the Book of Moroni, and then they get moved down to David Whitmer's farm because persecution is so great. And then after that point, they're going to translate 1st and 2nd Nephi, Jacob, Enos, Jerem, Omni to the words of Mormon. So that comes after they have done this move. So the time that this prophecy was brought forth, it says there's going to be three witnesses. Joseph Smith knew Martin Harris and Oliver Cowdery, but he did not yet know David Whitmer. And so it's kind of a tall tale to say that there's going to be three witnesses, but quite another thing to produce it. They signed their name to the affidavit and then testified, all three of them, that they had in fact had been a witness to the Book of Mormon, even though all three of them later left the church for various reasons. So anyhow, interesting prophecy. There's a couple more interruptions by Moroni. I wrote here that in chapter 8, verse 20, the story gets interrupted by Moroni's discourse. And it's the discourse is on secret combinations. I just thought I'd throw on the screen that the story just continues in perfect order without Moroni's interjection. So in verse 19, it says, "For the Lord worketh not in secret combinations, neither doth he will that man should shed blood, but in all things hath forbidden it from the beginning of man." And then in the next chapter, it says, "Therefore, behold, it came to pass because of secret combinations of Achish and his friends. Behold, they did overthrow the kingdom of Omer." So you get 7 verses in between there written by Moroni. So it's a pause in the dissertation. Moroni writes, and then another. It just continues on. This happens again in chapter 12. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to go back and talk about the part in chapter 4 and 5, because at the end of 3 it says, "Came to pass the Lord commanded him that he should seal up the 2 stones which he had received, and show them not until the Lord showed them unto the children of men." And then after Moroni talks, "For it came to pass that after the Lord had prepared the stones which the brother had carried up to the mount, the brother came down out of the mount, and he did put forth the stones into the vessels which were prepared, one end of the other," and blah, kind of going on. So basically, you can see that the actual Book of Ether is a complete dissertation in chiasmus form. It ends in chapter 3. Moroni talks and just continues right on in chapter 6. In chapter 8, it's talking about secret combinations. Moroni interrupts, and then it continues right back where it was talking about secret combinations. And in chapter 12, it's another one of these cases where the story of Ether was going on. The kind of Ether chapter 12, verse 5, it says, "Came to pass that Ether did prophesy great and marvelous things unto the people, which they did not believe, because they saw them not." And then Moroni brings forth 35 other verses talking about a discourse on faith. Is truly a great one. But then it just picks right up. 13 verse 2, "For behold, they rejected all the words of Ether, for he truly told them of all things from the beginning of man, and that after the waters receded," continuing on. So you get little interruptions of the chiasmus story by Moroni, and then the story just picks right up. So if you're a Joseph Smith trying to do this, you not only have to keep the genealogy in mind and in reverse order the genealogy, but then you've got to bring forth these interruptions by Moroni and then go right back to the story after Moroni talks. So that's in 3 different instances in the overall chiasmus structure where Moroni interrupts, then Moroni continues on with the record, and then chapter 15 is finally the end of the chapter when the people are destroyed and there's only one of them left. So this is really, truly a very, very difficult concept um, to think that a 23-year-old kid on a farm with little education, he's got a new wife that I imagine would require quite a bit of attention. I know my own son is just a little bit older than that, and the thought that he could bring forth something like this is laughable. So this is an amazing chiasma structure, 30 names repeated in a genealogy, a testimony of Christ, and then the story of all 30 of those names repeated in precise reverse order to the end of the book with some little interruptions by Moroni. It's truly an amazing testament that Joseph Smith was a prophet. He was just verbally speaking these words to Oliver Cowdery as they were writing them down. How in the world could anyone keep any of this straight in their mind? They all, the people who worked with him, testified that he did not have any notes. He was just speaking to them. And they were also testing him. Like Oliver Cowdery was continually testing Joseph Smith to make sure, that this really was a translation process. His wife tested him. Martin Harris did. The people later, when he moved to the Whitmer farm, all watched the process happen. They were all testaments to how this translation process happened. It was just verbally dictated by Joseph Smith and written down by Oliver Cowdery. So truly a great chiasmus formation, testament of Christ in the middle, big story of a genealogy, truly a great representation of how Joseph Smith truly was a prophet, because I don't know how anyone could explain how this could be done by a kid at 23 with anything other than if he was truly inspired. So hope you like this. Like, subscribe. Thanks for being here. We'll see you. Bye. Chiasmus in the Book of Mormon supports the idea that Joseph Smith was a prophet because it's hard and not the way Western civilizations write. Joseph Smith was just 23 years old when he dictated the Book of Mormon. He only had a 3rd grade education. He daily worked a farm in Harmony, Pennsylvania for sustenance. He was a newlywed of just 2 years, and he had lost his first child just 9 months earlier. So ask yourself, what uneducated 23-year-old boy with a new wife wants to spend his time immersed in Scripture? Additionally, the Book of Mormon was dictated in just 65 to 75 working days at a pace of 3,000 to 4,500 words per day. There were no revisions to the dictation. Thus, every word making up the over 900 chiasmus and other Hebrew poetic parallel forms within the text had to be spoken in precise order, perfectly. Again, ask yourself, could an uneducated 23-year-old farm boy do this? No, only a truly inspired prophet could do it.